When the kidnappers forced Chuan to choose between the two, he gave up on his childhood sweetheart and chose me. But I didn't go with him, because I know he'll regret it. That's how it was in my past life. After I was rescued, Chuan's childhood sweetheart had indecent photos taken of her by her kidnappers, and she slit her wrists and died the very night she returned home. Chuan pretended not to care and went ahead with the wedding as planned. But after we got married, he made my life a living hell. 7 years later, I finally managed to get him to agree to a divorce. But on the way to get a divorce, he lost control of his emotions and drove the car off a cliff. Even as he lay dying, he was still blaming me. We owe Xiao this anyway. We should spend the rest of our lives atoning for her. What right do you have to just live in your own little corner? So, if I could start over, I wouldn't want to live like that anymore. Wei, come with me. The moment I realized I had been reborn, the kidnappers were holding knives to my neck in Tang Xiaoxiao's. They suggested that Chuan choose one of us to save. Chuan's gaze wandered between the two of us, and after a fierce internal struggle, I made the same choice as in my previous life. He reached out his hand to me, but I shook my head firmly. Chuan, you should save Tang Xiaoxiao first. In this life, I don't want to owe anyone anything. And I certainly don't want to live with the burden of having taken a life. Upon hearing this, Chuan seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Wei, you're my fiancé, so I should have saved you first. But since you put it that way, don't blame me. Then he hurriedly took Tang Xiaoxiao away from the scene, afraid that I might change my mind at any moment. But unlike him, I didn't regret my decision once I'd made it. That's how it went in his previous life. He rushed over with the money. But the kidnappers raised their demands at the last minute, saying they could only take one person at a time. Chuan had no choice but to choose me in the end. However, while we were away trying to raise the ransom money, the kidnappers took advantage of the situation. After taking indecent photos of Tang Xiaoxiao, they attempted to assault her. Fortunately, we arrived in time with the police, but even without going all the way, that situation had already stripped her of all dignity. Tang Xiaoxiao returned home in a daze. And after everyone had gone to sleep that night, she slit her wrists. By the time it was discovered, it was already too late. When Chuan heard the news, he didn't seem to care at all. He calmly handled the arrangements for Tang Xiaoxiao's funeral and gave her family a large sum of money to settle their affairs. Even when I suggested postponing the wedding, he flatly refused. Wei, marrying you was something I'd planned a long time ago. I can't let outsiders influence my decision, can I? Yet it was precisely this outsider spoke of whom he had been thinking about for 7 whole years. He only married me to keep me tied down, so I could atone for Tang Xiaoxiao. But what have I done wrong? After Chuan and the others left, I started figuring out how to save myself. Because this time, I'm not sure if Chuan will ever come back. In his previous life, he used the excuse of hugging Tang Xiaoxiao to slip a tracking device into her pocket. So even if the kidnappers move to a different location, we'll be able to locate Tang Xiaoxiao immediately using GPS. But just a moment ago, it seemed as though he had forgotten all about it. I guess. From start to finish, the only person he ever wanted to save was Tang Xiaoxiao. It was only because of my status as his fiancée and for fear of being criticized by others that he reluctantly chose me. After all, we're just related by marriage, so our relationship isn't exactly close. Tang Xiaoxiao was by his side during those most innocent years. They were not only childhood sweethearts but also close friends and confidants. It's only natural that Chuan would have regrets about his past life. In this life, he can finally have his wish granted. I'm happy for him. At the same time, he didn't forget to look for an opportunity to escape. I know that when the kidnappers change locations, they'll pass by an auto repair shop. The auto mechanics inside were fighting fiercely and viciously. In a past life, when a group of kidnappers passed through here, they tried to commandeer a repair shop on the spot. But they didn't expect the owner to be such a tough nut to crack. Flat out refused. A group of people grabbed their weapons and got into a fierce fight. The kidnappers probably never dreamed there were people even more menacing than they were. In the end, afraid of making a big deal out of it. He had no choice but to slink away. Later, the kidnappers were apprehended, and the owner of the repair shop even came forward to testify against them. Just like in their past lives, they left one of them in the car to watch over me. Everyone else headed for the repair shop. My hands were tied behind my back, and the kidnapper sitting in the driver's seat didn't give me the time of day. So, while he wasn't looking, I bit through the car door handle with my teeth. Then he flung open the car door and ran forward like a madman. My destination was the same as the kidnappers: the auto repair shop. I'm willing to take a chance that they won't stand by and do nothing, so I just barged right in. By this point, the repair shop was in complete chaos. I spotted the young garage owner right away. His features were well-defined and handsome, exuding an air of dignified integrity, combined with his agile moves. There's a certain indescribable coolness about him, afraid of getting caught in the crossfire. I crouched low and dashed over in the blink of an eye. He ended up using too much force and knocked the person right to the ground. When I fell into his arms, I was so scared my face went pale. "I'm sorry," I stammered out an apology. "Could you please save me?" The man glanced at me and furrowed his brow. The next second, he wrapped his arms around me and we rolled around on the ground several times. Then, with a thud, a stool fell onto the spot where we had just been lying. If he hadn't found me in time, I probably wouldn't have made it. I was still in shock when the kidnappers realized I had escaped. So, what started as a matter of securing a space has now turned into a matter of securing personnel. The two sides were facing off. I looked longingly at the man beside me and whispered, "If you can save me, I'll do anything you ask." But he didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the group of kidnappers thoughtfully. Someone behind him couldn't help but remind him, "Qin Yi, it's better to stay out of trouble." So his name is Qin Yi. As I waited for a reply that never came, my heart sank. Never mind. Why put someone through such a hard time? When the ringleader of the kidnappers called me over for the third time, I started walking toward him. But before long, someone grabbed my shoulder. I was forced to stop. Qin Yi stepped forward and said to the group of kidnappers, "She's under my protection today." It must have been fate working in my favor suddenly. The roar of a motorcycle echoed outside the door. A confident smile spread across Hadano's face. "My assistant is here." When the kidnappers heard this, they shot me a resentful glare and stormed off, cursing under their breath. My heart, which had been in my throat, finally settled. I let out a quiet sigh, and immediately felt the pressure on my wrist ease. It was Hino who cut the rope in my hand. "My name is Lin Wei. Thank you so much for what you did just now." I held out my hand to him, but Qin Yi kept staring at my wrist, where the rope had left bloody marks that looked truly shocking. "Let me take care of that for you." I shook my head. "It's just a minor scratch. It's nothing." "Who just said that if I could save you, I could do anything?" Without a word, he pushed me down onto a stool, then fetched the first aid kit. "Just bear with it." I bit my lip as I watched him carefully tend to my wound. I suddenly felt a warm glow in my heart. I remember in my past life, right after I got married to Xinxingchuan, there was a time when he got drunk. As I was helping him back to the bedroom, I simply mentioned in passing that he should drink less. As a result, he flew into a rage and shoved me violently. I lost my balance and fell to the ground. The jade bracelet on my wrist hit the floor and shattered into pieces, and the shards cut my wrist. I let out a scream and clutched my wrist, which was gushing blood, crying out in pain. When Xinxingchuan saw this, he merely stared at me coldly and said, "Does it hurt?" "It should. Xiao Xiao suffered 10,000 times more than you did back then. But she can't cry out in pain anymore. If it hadn't been to save you, how could she have been humiliated by those kidnappers? And how could she have lost all hope?" I just sat there on the floor, completely stunned. My heart grew colder by the minute. It took me a long time to find my voice again. "But the kidnappers took me and Tang Xiao Xiao hostage to threaten you. You were the one who chose to save me first, so why are you telling me all this now?" The signs of drunkenness on Xinxingzhou's face had faded considerably. but his gaze remained icy. Lin Wei, I've actually never approved of this arranged marriage. If you hadn't told Grandma that you liked me, she wouldn't have forced me to marry you. So, are you saying that if I weren't here, you'd only need to save Tang Xiaoxiao? Ha Hai suddenly burst out laughing. Qin Xingchuan, you're completely crazy. Instead of blaming the kidnappers, you're blaming me. I got up and went back to my room to tend to my wound. Since then, no matter how much it hurt, I never mentioned it to Qin Xingchuan. Right now, the person in front of me, afraid I'll feel pain, is awkwardly blowing on my wound. My eyes stung, so I closed them for a moment, took a deep breath, and asked, even though I already knew the answer, "What are you doing?" Qin Yi looked up, a pure smile on her face. When I got hurt as a kid, my mom used this method. See if it helps. I nodded. Yeah. I'm feeling much better. With that, Qin Yi resumed what he had been doing, but the mood was quickly ruined. Brother Qin, I heard someone was causing trouble at your repair shop, so I rushed right over. Whoa, where'd you find such a hot chick? A tall man with a floral tattoo on his arm walked in through the door, and his eyes lit up the moment he saw me. That's really rare. I don't think I've ever seen such a pretty girl here before. As Big Tattooed Arm spoke, a strange blush crept across his face. Seeing this, Qin Yi stepped in front of me. Thanks, but it's all taken care of now. The rest isn't your concern. I'll buy you a drink sometime. Big Tattooed Arm froze for a moment, then realized what was happening. Old Qin, now that you've got a girlfriend, you don't even want to hang out with your buddies anymore. He turned his head away with a touch of pride and gave a loud snort. It looks like he's angry. Qin Yi pressed his hand to his forehead, then pulled him aside and whispered, "Can't you read the room? Go find a cooler spot." Qin, is she your girlfriend? Don't you think it looks like it? They look just like a perfect match. I'll give you credit for knowing your place. I don't care you have to treat me to some wedding candy. We can't do without you. The two people nearby kept whispering to each other. Although they were trying to keep their voices down, I could still hear every word clearly. To break the awkward silence, I pretended to be busy, looking left and right, up and down. I just couldn't bring myself to look at them. A few minutes later, the guy with the big tattoo on his arm was talked into leaving by Qin Yi. After he left, Qin Yi asked me, "Where do you live? I'll walk you home." Perhaps it was just selfishness getting the better of me, but suddenly I didn't want to go back so soon. Anyway, my parents are always busy with their own lives, so even if I don't go home for a month, they won't ask about it. As for Qin Xingchuan, if I'm not mistaken, there's a good chance he's been reborn too, by now. He must be eager to spend the rest of his life with Tang Xiaoxiao. During the 7 years we were married in my previous life, he never took me to any social events and never slept in the same room as me. Whenever others asked about me, he would always give them a cold shoulder, and eventually turned me into the laughingstock of the group. I think I'll just stay far away from him for the rest of my life. So I pleaded with Qin Yi, "Could you let me stay with you for a few days?" Her fingers gently tugged at the hem of his shirt and gave it a little shake. Taking both lives into account, he must be a good person, and he's capable of protecting me if I were to rely on him. Would he turn me down? Qin Yi suddenly leaned in close to me, staring at me with an unusually intense gaze. "Young lady, if you keep this up, I'm going to take you seriously." Perhaps because we were standing so close, I could even smell the fresh scent of soapberry on him. I swallowed instinctively and was just about to speak when I heard a familiar voice from behind me. "What are you doing?" "It's Qin Xingchuan. He arrived with the police. Are you okay?" Qin Xingchuan looked at me, and the concern in his eyes didn't seem feigned. I spread my hands. "Do I look like I'm up to something?" Qin Xingchuan remained silent. Tang Xiaoxiao came in shortly after. She glanced at the repair shop, which was back to normal operations, and asked bluntly, "Lin Wei, how did you manage to escape from the kidnappers? As far as I know, there are 6 of them in total, with your hands tied and being in a strange place. I'm really curious." Tang Xiao. What do you mean by that? As everyone knows, the Lin and Shen families are planning to form an alliance through marriage. But they're both also eyeing that plot of land in South City. The auction is just 10 days away, and the highest bidder will win. But this had to happen right at the most critical moment. And the ransom is outrageously high. Lin Wei. I really can't help but think the worst. Is she suspecting that I hired the kidnappers? I have to admit, I've never been so speechless in my entire life. I feel truly helpless and deeply sympathetic toward what Tang Xiao went through in her previous life. But in this life, it was essentially me who saved her. But as soon as she was rescued, the first thing she did was turn around and blame me. That's truly heartbreaking. I suddenly raised my hand and shouted, "Officer, someone is slandering me." Then we were all taken away. While waiting for the hearing, Tang Xiao continued to press the issue. Lin Wei. Why won't you speak up? I snorted. Why should I tell you? You're not a cop. Tang Xiao was at a loss for words. Shen Xingchuan couldn't stand it anymore, so he immediately stepped in to defend Tang Xiao. Wei. Xiao just wants to know the truth so she'll know what to say and what not to say during the interrogation later. What? Are you still going to lie to the police? Shen Xingchuan stood up in a rage and pointed at me, saying, Lin Wei, you're completely unreasonable. Qin Yi, who had just come out of the interrogation room, happened to see this and immediately stepped in front of me without a word. Put your hands down. There was no inflection in his voice, yet it carried an irresistible sense of oppression. I was hiding behind Qin Yi, so I couldn't see their expressions at that moment. But I could sense the tension in the air. Shen Xingchuan asked, "Who are you to her?" Qin Yi turned her face toward me, a faint smile playing at the corners of her mouth. He asked, "What do you think?" I looked up at that impossibly perfect profile. Just inches away, as if by some strange impulse, I used my thumb and index finger to form a heart shape. Shen Xingchuan saw this unfold before his eyes, and his face immediately darkened considerably. Just then, the police called him in to give a statement. After a thorough interrogation, the situation began to become clearer. The police have identified a suspect, and now they must first apprehend the kidnapper before proceeding with the investigation. But I know this was done by Shen Xingchuan's rival. As we left the police station, Qin Yi looked at me and said, "It's okay." What? I asked, looking completely confused. He explained, "The thing you asked me about this afternoon, sure." I finally realized he was referring to the time I asked him to take me in. It's just me and my mom at home, but she's back at our old house right now. I usually stay at the repair shop, so feel free to make yourself at home. I was just about to agree. Shen Xingchuan, who was standing nearby, said, Wei, your aunt and uncle already know you were kidnapped. They must have gotten off the plane by now and are on their way home. Are you sure you don't want to go back? I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Even Shen Xingchuan, a complete outsider, knows more about my parents than I do. For as long as I can remember, they've always been so busy that they forgot my birthday. And so busy that they forgot to come to my parent-teacher conference. I would even deliberately do poorly on tests or hurt myself just to see them, because only then will they briefly appear and bestow upon me a tiny bit of love. Eventually, I stopped hoping for anything and started celebrating my own birthday. I even paid the flower lady to come to my parent-teacher conference because she was so kind and beautiful. I grew up all alone like that, until I met Shen Xingchuan on the school basketball court. He casually blocked the ball that was about to hit me. In the sunlight, the young man looked exceptionally handsome. A few beads of sweat trickled down his forehead, glistening with a crystal-clear sheen. He raised the corner of his eye slightly, a hint of arrogance in his gaze, and said, "Be careful, classmate." Combined with that cool, crisp voice, I was hooked at first sight. I was such a wimp back then. I just mumbled a quiet thank you and ran off. After that, I started paying attention to him, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, and I also found out that he had a close childhood friend, but it seems their relationship has remained at the childhood friend stage. A childhood crush is silent, yet it quietly takes root deep within the heart. Even later, when we happen to run into each other or our eyes met by chance, it would make my face flush and my heart race. I'm actually well aware that when it comes to my future marriage, I'll likely have little say in the matter. So, when I found out that my intended marriage partner was actually Shin, I was overjoyed for a long time. My parents also think highly of Shin. In fact, they're in touch with him more often than with me. In my previous life, when I asked to divorce Shin, they flatly refused. Shin is so capable and puts up with all your bad habits. Why don't you cherish him instead of making us worry about you? I know that ever since we got married, the interests of the Lin and Shin families have been intertwined. So getting a divorce isn't going to be easy. And so, I endured it year after year, until I eventually developed depression and began self-harmingly. Then did Shin agree to divorce me. Now that I've been given a second chance at life, I want to live it for myself. That's why I don't want to go home. However, it suddenly occurred to me that there was still one unresolved matter. So I had to go back home. Before leaving, I took the cell phone out of Chin Ye's pocket, entered my number, and dialed it. I didn't hand the phone back to him until I heard it ring. Make sure to save my number. I'll come see you in a couple of days. After saying that, I hailed a taxi and drove off. From start to finish, I didn't even glance at Shin. When I got home, I found my parents sitting in the living room waiting for me. Before I could say a word, I was bombarded with accusations. Shin told us about what happened today. Could you please stop being so stubborn from now on? Those are kidnappers. You could end up losing your life. And you actually let Shin save someone else first. When Mom got to this point, she let out a heavy sigh. How can we possibly trust you with the company if you act like this? He didn't trust me. So in his previous life he handed the company over to Shin. Then, with their minds at ease, they set out to pursue the dreams of their youth. Dad, who had been sitting on the couch the whole time, suddenly spoke up. Let's get married sooner rather than later. I disagree. I said this in a tone that brooked no argument. I came back just to tell you that tomorrow I'm going to the Shin family to call off this engagement, whether you agree or not. This time I'm going to make my own decision. And don't try to use the company to threaten me. Give it to whoever you want. I don't need it anyway. I don't want it anymore. Now that I've been given a second chance at life, I've already figured out the trends for the next 7 years. So I certainly won't end up destitute. After saying that, I went back to my room. They must be even more disappointed in me, right? It doesn't matter anymore. The next day, I got up early. But I saw that Mom had made breakfast herself and was waiting for me. Aunt Fong told me you got up last night to look for something to eat. It's my fault. I completely forgot to ask if you'd had dinner. I stood there dumbfounded, unable to figure out why Mom had suddenly become so gentle and considerate. She tenderly tapped a strand of hair from my cheek behind my ear, then said in a tone of self-reproach, "Your dad and I talked it over last night. And we think we might have been going about this the wrong way all along. We want you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet when you grow up. So we didn't dare spoil you too much, for fear of spoiling you rotten. You can make your own decision. If you want. We're not going to force you to marry into the Shin family." Does this mean they've agreed to call off the engagement? Suddenly, I felt a pang of sadness. As a child, Lin Wei had her share of tantrums and outbursts. But all she ever got in return were scoldings. Later, she began to learn to be obedient and well-behaved, thinking that this would earn her their attention. As it turned out, they just looked down on her for being weak and incompetent. Is it really true that just by mimicking their harsh words, I've managed to change their minds? Even when the car pulled up to the Shin family villa, I still couldn't believe it. Actually, the idea of a marriage alliance between the Shin and Lin families was first proposed by Shin's grandmother. It all started when I saved Mrs. Shin, who had fainted from low blood sugar. At a banquet, when the old lady woke up, she was very grateful to me and insisted on adopting me as her goddaughter. After a few exchanges, we got to know each other. I still go to the Shin family's old house for a meal every now and then. It wasn't until I ran into Shin there that I realized the old lady was actually Shin grandmother. The old lady was as sharp as a tack. She could tell at a glance that I had a crush on Shin, and that's how things unfolded. Now that I have to tell the old lady in person that we're calling off the engagement, I really feel a bit guilty toward her. After all, she had already given me the bracelet that had been passed down through the Shin family for generations. It looks like we'll just have to return it. Shin arrived before me, accompanied by Tang Xiao. They were dressed quite formally, since I'd just broken off our engagement. They could go ahead and get engaged right away. The main thing is that everyone has a good time. But just as I set the bracelet down on the table, Shin grabbed my wrist and asked, "What does this mean, by the way?" Last night I only told him to meet me at the Shin family's old mansion. I didn't mention anything about calling off the engagement. Grandma Shin looked at the two of us, as if she had realized something. Wei, has Chuan done something to hurt you?" As she spoke, she shot Tang Xiao a withering glance. I said respectfully to Mrs. Shin, "Grandma Shin, it is I who wish to call off the engagement with Shin Chuan." His tone was very calm, as if he were describing today's weather. Upon hearing this, Shin Chuan's pupils suddenly contracted. He clearly couldn't believe it. "Why? Since you left me behind yesterday to save someone else, I figured that must be the person you really want to marry, right?" I looked at Tang Xiao and saw that she was staring right back at me, looking every bit the stubborn little innocent. "No." A flicker of self-doubt crossed Shin Chuan's eyes. "But you told me to save Xiao first." "I was just testing you. And the result speaks for itself." Shin Chuan was instantly at a loss for words. Grandma Shin sighed and said, "I heard all about what happened yesterday. You're a good kid. It's Chuan who isn't good enough for you." "Grandma." Shin Chuan suddenly interrupted Mrs. Shin. He gripped my wrist so tightly it felt as if he were trying to crush the bones. "Lin Wei, I won't agree to that. Don't even think about it. The wound from yesterday hadn't healed yet. And with him squeezing it like that, it's probably going to start bleeding again." I was enduring the pain when, all of a sudden, I found it really funny. After Tang Xiao died in his previous life, he mourned her for 7 whole years. After being reborn, he couldn't wait to rescue Tang Xiao. I thought he was so deeply in love with her that he couldn't wait to marry her. I curled the corners of my mouth and said with a smile, "If that's what you want, then tomorrow I'll go to the media and unilaterally announce the cancellation of our engagement. When that happens, it'll be the Shin family's reputation that takes the hit." With that, she pried Shin Chuan's fingers apart one by one and turned to leave. I didn't expect Shin Chuan to come after me. Just then, Qin Ye's motorcycle pulled up in front of the Shin family's house. Not wanting to get too involved with Shin Chuan, I simply said, "Sorry. My boyfriend's here to pick me up." Shin Chuan frowned in displeasure and said sarcastically, "Lin Wei, are you sure you want to date a penniless guy like that? Can he really make you happy? Or would I go for someone like you, all talk and no action?" After saying that, I walked toward Qin Yi, but the very next second, someone grabbed my wrist again. Ouch! I let out a cry of pain. Only then did Shin Chuan, the one who had started it all, notice the wound on my wrist. He stammered in a panic, trying to explain. "Tu didn't know you were hurt." I lowered my eyes and smiled sarcastically, as if knowing would make you care. When Qin Yi saw this, he couldn't hold back any longer. He charged forward and knocked Shin Chuan to the ground with a single punch. His movements were fast, precise, and ruthless. Shin Chuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes burned with a fierce determination. Yet he dared not make a single move. Seeing this, Qin Yi said in a warning tone, "Stay away from her." Then he put his helmet on my head, revved the engine, and took me away. The motorcycle sped through the mountains, and the scenery rushed by. I leaned against Qin Ye's back, feeling the thrill of speed. It seems like this will help me forget the unpleasantness of the past, at least for a while. "Hey, honey, where are we going?" Qin Ye's voice came from the front. I chuckled. It seemed he had heard everything I'd just said. so I naturally put my arm around his waist and said, "Since you've already called me your girlfriend, can I come over to your place? I'm actually pretty hungry." "Sure. No problem. As it happens, I'm actually a pretty good cook. Then I'll have 4 dishes. It must be arranged." Kina's laughter echoed through the mountains. I don't know if it's because of him, but right now I just feel incredibly at ease. Hirano's house was bigger than I had imagined. He fumbled around and brought me a brand new pair of men's slippers. They might be a little big, but they're the only new pair we have at home. I slipped it on casually and said with a smile, "It's okay. Luckily, I come back every now and then to tidy up, so it shouldn't be too messy." Even though he's the host, he's the one who seems self-conscious. I plopped down on the couch, propped my chin in my hand, looked at him, and said, "I can't cook. So you're going to have to do the honors today." Instead of starting to cook right away, Chin-yi came over carrying a first aid kit. The wound, which had been properly bandaged yesterday, was squeezed by Shin-Shin-Chuan today, causing blood to seep out and stick to the gauze. By now it had dried and was stuck to the wound. Chin-yi carefully poured the povidone onto the gauze, trying to dissolve the wound in the gauze. For such meticulous work, the grown man was doing it with great care. Half an hour later, the bandage was finally reapplied. He also made sure to remind them, "Don't go in the water these next couple of days." I blurted out, "Then how am I supposed to take a shower? It's okay if you don't wash for 2 days. After thinking for a moment, he added, "I won't mind. You dare." "I wouldn't dare." "Humph. Should I go make dinner? Then?" I nodded with a smile. I suddenly realized that whenever I'm with Chin-yi, I always feel incredibly relaxed. An hour later, he had prepared 4 dishes. These include sweet and sour pork tenderloin, garlic shrimp, steamed fish, and cold cucumber salad. He handed me the bowl and chopsticks. "Give it a try." After trying a few dishes, I gave him a thumbs up. It looks, smells, and tastes amazing, a truly unforgettable experience. Just like everyone else says. Looks like I won't have to worry about where to eat from now on. I got a call from my dad this afternoon. Basically, he told me to attend the auction in 10 days' time, saying that if I could secure that plot of land in South City, he would hand over full responsibility for the company to me. I know that piece of land. Besides the Shin and Lin families, a few other companies have their eyes on it. In my past life, I was deeply shaken by the kidnapping incident, and with Tang Xiaoxiao's death later on, it's impossible that my heart wasn't moved in the slightest. And so, I fell seriously ill and missed the auction. But even if I weren't sick, I wouldn't compete with Shin-Shin-Chuan. Back then, he was all I could think about. I felt I had finally found someone I could spend the rest of my life with. But at the time, the Shin family was facing a debt crisis, so it was quite difficult for Shin-Shin-Chuan to acquire that plot of land. In the end, I borrowed some money from the Lin family to help him. Shin-Shin-Chuan eventually won the bid, and after securing the land, he built a theme park there and actively recruited businesses. Within a few years, he had successfully propelled the Shin family to new heights. It's clear that this piece of land is a surefire investment. Otherwise, so many people wouldn't be eyeing it. This time, I'm determined to succeed. I really didn't expect Tang Xiaoxiao to come to me for help. This was a departure from the aggressive attitude he had displayed just a few days earlier. This time, she adopted a very humble attitude and pleaded with me in a submissive tone. "Could you please not call off your engagement with Xingchuan? We've always just been friends. If you agree, I'll never show my face around you two again." I looked at her in silence, utterly speechless. Yes. I always thought the same thing last time, that they were just close friends. But after Tang Xiaoxiao's death, Xingchuan's behavior went far beyond simply mourning a good friend. I remember the day he agreed to divorce me. It was the 10th time I'd self-harmed since I developed depression. When he came back, he found me lying on the floor, covered in blood. He probably agreed to divorce me because he was afraid I might die in his house. But on the way to get a divorce, he suddenly asked me, "Did you know today is the anniversary of Xiaoxiao's death?" I looked at him blankly and shook my head. I can't even keep myself in check. How could I possibly remember all that? But my reaction completely infuriated Chuan. He angrily pounded the steering wheel and called me cold-hearted and heartless. The life you live today was bought with Xiao's life. Yet you've never shown any gratitude. Have even forgotten the anniversary of her death. All you think about is leaving. Do you really think that will free you from the pangs of your conscience? Lin Wei, you really disgust me. I was furious at the time, so I snapped back without holding back. Fine. You're so grateful, and you can't forget her, so why don't you go die with her? No sooner had he spoken than the car began to sway violently, and finally plunged straight off the cliff. Even as he lay dying, Chuan was still blaming me. We owe Xiao this anyway. We should spend the rest of our lives atoning for her. What right do you have to just live in your own little corner? And from now on, we owe each other nothing. I'm eager to see what kind of ending Chuan will end up with. I gestured to Tang Xiao to stop talking. After all, constantly thinking about my past life really does make me feel sick. Don't you get it? Both the Shen and Lin families have already tacitly agreed that this engagement is off. Did Chuan send you here? She shook her head. No. It's just that I don't want to see him lose. Lin Wei. Didn't you used to really like Chuan? This whole thing is my fault. I shouldn't have suspected that you hired the kidnappers. And I definitely shouldn't have come back from abroad so suddenly. If I hadn't, Chuan wouldn't have had to hurt you in order to save me. She's got me all confused. Don't you want to see him lose? Tang Xiao explained. The Shen family needs that plot of land in the southern part of the city to turn their fortunes around. Lin Wei. Since you're determined to call off the engagement, could you at least stop competing with Chuan? I snorted derisively. What the hell are you thinking? Now I finally get it. In our past life, by the time we rushed to rescue Tang Xiao, the police had already apprehended the kidnappers, and the 2 large ransom payments had been successfully recovered. It was only with the money I got from the Lin family that Chuan was able to successfully secure that plot of land. But now, because my attempt to free myself alerted the kidnappers, they've long since fled to who knows where. The police have yet to uncover any useful leads, let alone recover the ransom. In that case, Shen's bid to acquire the land has already lost its edge. Tang Xiao still refused to give up. She clenched her teeth and suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me. Lin Wei, I'm begging you. You don't have to love him. But please don't ruin him. I've seen moral blackmail before, but never anything this shameless. I bent down, leaned close to her, and whispered, when you first heard that Chuan was going to marry me, you left the country. But then you suddenly came back after hearing that we were engaged. You're right. It's all your fault. So you should help him yourself. The Tang family may not be as wealthy as the Lin family, but surely you can at least chip in a little, can't you? Besides, he used his money to save you last time. It had nothing to do with me. You're the one begging Miss Hold I call you stupid. Or myself. Upon hearing this, Tang Xiao's face turned deathly pale. He opened his mouth, but in the end said nothing. It would be best if she could figure it out. If she can't, she'll be the one who suffers. During that time, I went home for a visit and found that my parents had left again. It seems they're still the same as ever, focused only on their own pursuits. TV never changed. All they need is a suitable heir. They don't care who it is. Never mind, it makes it sound like I care about them. I've been resting at home for 2 days, and my hand is almost back to normal. I took a car out of the garage and drove straight to the repair shop in Hadana. In the end, I didn't run into Qin Yi. But I did bump into that guy with the big tattoo on his arm again. He called out to me awkwardly. Hello, sister-in-law. Where's Qin Yi? I asked him. He scratched his head and replied, Brother Qin's out. Is there something you need from him? No sooner had he said that than he slapped his own mouth and muttered to himself. Can't I just give you a call when I'm free? Look at me, had a big mouth I have. Then he grinned at me. Take a break for now. Sis. Brother Qin should be back soon. I nodded and sat down on the sofa. There are several different sets of tea sets on the coffee table. I brewed myself a pot of tea and savored it slowly. Big tattooed arm hadn't left. His face was full of curiosity, and his eyes kept sneaking glances at me, seeing me make the tea myself. He explained, "I'm a rough and tumble guy. I don't know how to do this sort of thing, usually. Brother Chin makes it for me. Please don't take it the wrong way." I looked up and asked, "What's your name?" "Lei Yong." "Is he nice to you?" "I don't know why, but I just have this feeling." Lei Yong just shook his head. I thought I'd guessed wrong. I heard him say, "No. Brother Chin is really good to all of us." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, tell me more." Most of the employees at this repair shop come from impoverished mountainous areas, and they all have some physical disabilities to varying degrees. Take Aquan, for example, who repairs engines. He doesn't speak, but as soon as he hears a sound, he can pinpoint exactly where the problem is. Then there's Chen Ping, who handles maintenance. He has a limp, and a Dan, who does the painting. He can't read a single word. They first came to this city hoping to make a living, but once they arrived, they realized that with physical disabilities, no formal education, and no marketable skills, it was difficult to even find a decent job. It was Brother Chin who took them in, gave them time to learn the trade, and provided room and board as well as a salary. So a group of people just stuck by Brother Chin, never going anywhere else. I see. I looked at Lei Yong again and asked, "What about you?" Upon hearing this, a look of gravity appeared on his face for the first time. I met Brother Chin 5 years ago. Back then, I had offended someone and was nearly beaten to death. But Brother Chin saved me. From that moment on, I swore to stick by Brother Chin for the rest of my life. Anyone who dares to bully him will have to step over my dead body first. To be honest, hearing those words really shook me to the core. I've always lived in a lonely world, and there are hardly any people who truly care about me. Yet Chin Yi managed to bring this group of people together, and they worked diligently under his leadership. I'm really envious. All of a sudden, I really want to see him soon. Do you know where he went? Lei Yong thought for a moment and said, "Brother Chin didn't mention the exact location. He just said someone was looking for him, and it seemed to be around Tiancheng Plaza." Just as I was about to leave, Lei Yong seemed to remember something and added, "By the way, sis-in-law, Brother Chin is actually pretty wealthy. He just keeps a low profile. At first, he wouldn't let us call you sister-in-law. He said you were a girl from a wealthy family, so we had to call you miss." I couldn't help but frown. Why is Chin Yi still using such an old-fashioned term? I never would have dreamed that I'd see Chin Yi and Tang Xiaoxiao sitting together at a coffee shop in Tiancheng Plaza. I didn't know what Tang Xiaoxiao was saying to Chin Yi, but I could see her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. Chin Yi had been listening the whole time, his furrowed brow never relaxing. After watching for a while, I noticed that Tang Xiaoxiao suddenly stood up and moved from her seat across the table to sit right next to Chin Yi. My gut tells me there's more to their relationship than meets the eye. If this were the me from before today, I might have just walked away and blocked Chin Yi. After being hurt once, I simply cannot tolerate any relationship that isn't based on pure love. But when it comes to Chin Yi, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt this once. Just as I was about to walk into the coffee shop, I saw Chin Yi jump up from his seat as if afraid of coming into contact with something dirty, and then our eyes met just as I had walked into the store. In contrast to my calm demeanor, Chin Yi seemed taken aback at first, clearly not expecting to see me there, but then strode toward me. Wei Wei. Just then, Tang Xiaoxiao ran out after them, a look of urgency on her face. "Mr. Chin, if you'll just agree." Tang Xiaoxiao's next words came to an abrupt halt the moment she saw me. However, she quickly regained her composure and asked me, "Lin Wei, what are you doing here? Could it be that you're here to see Mr. Chin too?" she said, leaning slightly toward Chin Yi, but Chin Yi was on high alert. As soon as she moved closer, she immediately sprang forward toward me. She looked at me with a slightly innocent expression and said, "Wei Wei, I put on a tough act. I'll get you when we get back." as Tang Xiaoxiao watched the way we interacted. Her eyes gradually lost their sparkle. Lin Wei, I really underestimated you. I shrugged and replied, yeah, I think so too. Tang Xiaoxiao was left speechless. Her face looked like an overturned paint palette, shifting from pale to red to pale agua in a truly striking sight. To be honest, I've never been the type to let people walk all over me. If I hadn't taken those who didn't care about me so seriously in my past life, I wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. Hinata took me home. By now, it was almost completely dark. We just sat there on the couch, neither of us saying a word. It was a long time before he finally broke the silence. Aren't you going to ask? Didn't you say you were coming back to get me? I said softly. If you want to talk about it, you'll tell me even if I don't ask. If you don't want to, asking won't do any good. Hinamaya's face was expressionless. Do you know why Tang Xiaoxiao came to see me? I shook my head. On the way back, I thought of many reasons. For example, has Tang Xiaoxiao taken a liking to Qinyi? Another example, Qin Xinchuan can't stand seeing us get along, so he deliberately sent Tang Xiaoxiao to annoy me. After all, they're close friends and would do anything for each other. But Qinyi suddenly asked me if I was eyeing that plot of land in the southern part of the city. I looked at him in shock. How did you know? Because I currently hold the right to use that land. It's something my father left me. What a coincidence. Wait a minute. So Tang Xiaoxiao still hasn't given up. She's gone straight to Qinyi, hoping to get her way through him. But how did she know that the land belonged to Qinyi? There is only one answer. And that is what Qin Xinchuan told her. He must have come into contact with Qinyi when he acquired the land in his previous life. Which is why he knew. When I saw that Qinyi was staring at me the whole time, I immediately realized what was going on. You don't think I was getting close to you just for this piece of land, do you? For some reason, a sense of unease welled up inside me. It turns out that just as I had my reservations about him, he was harboring doubts about me as well. I looked down, wanting to smile, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Seeing this, Qinyi suddenly cupped my face in his hands and said in all seriousness, silly. Of course I don't think that. At first, the thought did cross my mind. But I quickly dismissed it. I trust my judgment. I asked, just like when you saved Lei Yong and the others. Qinyi raised an eyebrow slightly. No, you're different from them. I saved them out of kindness, but I saved you because I was moved. Hirano, you're really good at this. I pouted and complained, feeling a little annoyed. He's so good at it, I have no idea how many he's dated. Qinyi looked at me fondly, and the hand cupping my face moved slightly, forcing me to tilt my head back. Then a kiss fell, as fleeting as a dragonfly skimming the water. Just a brief, fleeting touch. It's not about trying. It comes from the heart, naturally, following your instincts. I could feel my cheeks burning, and my heart was racing out of control, afraid that he would see her like this. She had no choice but to bury her face in his chest. Where my ear rested was right against his chest. The sound of his heartbeat thundered like a clap of thunder, deafening me, beat after beat, as if it were loudly declaring his love for me. I closed my eyes and took a moment to feel it, then said, Qinyi, I love you just as much as you love me. He didn't answer, but made his feelings clear through his actions. He held me tighter, so tight it felt as if he were trying to merge me into his very being. The next day when I woke up, Qinyi handed me a document. I took it and looked at it, only to find that it was a land use rights transfer agreement and my name was actually written on it. Hirano, are you out of your mind? Do you know what this means? I can't believe Itho could anyone be so stupid. I've already withdrawn from the auction. I happen to have exactly what you want, so there's no reason not to give it to you. It would be a lie to say I wasn't moved. My whole heart felt as if it were completely filled with something hot and swollen. I blinked and fought back the tears. This is a good thing. Don't cry. Since he's shown such sincerity, I can't let him outdo me. I pulled him up and said as we walked, before you sign, Come with me somewhere first. I took him to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Hinata kept asking me, are you really sure about this? I looked at him and smiled. Aren't you afraid I'll take your stuff, dump you, and find someone even hotter and richer? Qin frowned and thought for a moment. Well, I can't say for sure if there's anyone richer. But as for someone more handsome, that would be hard to find. Yeah, that's exactly why I brought you here. Isn't it? I didn't expect Shin to show up so soon. Qin Yi and I had just come out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, and we hadn't even had time to put away the red certificates we were holding. Watching this, Shin Chuan's face darkened to the extreme. Even his clenched fists were trembling slightly. He said, Wei, you ended up going with him after all. What a pain. I rolled my eyes, not intending to respond, but Shin Chuan grabbed my arm, and suddenly 2 tears rolled down his cheeks. Isn't this just crocodile tears? But there was something I wanted to say to Shin Chuan. So I asked Qin Yi to get in the car and wait for me. Once it was just the 2 of us, Shin Chuan couldn't wait to say, Wei, I regret it. I really do. You can hit me or yell at me whatever you want, I just beg you to forgive me. I sneered and retorted. Regret? Regret what? Do you regret not saving me? Or do you regret not treating me well in our past life? Upon hearing this, Shin Chuan released my wrist, and the color drained from his face in an instant. It seems that even he doesn't want to think about his past life anymore. After all, those past events clearly laid bare his various crimes. At that moment, Shin Chuan began slapping himself across the face, saying as he did so, I lost my mind. It was my fault. I deserved to die. But Wei, is there still a chance for us? I paused for a moment, then asked in a tone that was neither too casual nor too serious. Shin Chuan, what do you think? He stopped moving, lowered his eyes, and looked dejected. Suddenly, as if a thought had occurred to him, his eyes lit up. No. It's Tang Xiao. She's the one who got us into this mess. If she hadn't suddenly come back, none of this would have happened. Besides, I never asked her to come see you, she just took it upon herself and acted on her own. He took my hand again and pleaded humbly. Will you trust me one last time? You've always been the one I love, I really mean it. I know I've sinned, so I won't ask you for anything. I just want you to look at me, I'd even be willing to be your third wheel. I stared at Shin Chuan in horror, unable to believe that those words had come from his mouth. He yanked his hand back forcefully, taking care to wipe it on his clothes as he did so. Shin Chuan, what are you up to? Of course I wouldn't believe that he really loves me. Once you've experienced true love, this will just seem like unwanted trash. Shin Chuan looked incredibly tender. I realized it too late. But no matter what, I won't give up on you. It sent a chill down my spine. It felt just like being haunted by a ghost. Shin Chuan, if you keep this up, I'm going to call the police. Upon hearing this, Shin Chuan froze in his tracks, tears streaming down his face as if they were free. I just felt restless and couldn't wait to get out of there. Shin Chuan, you've always loved only yourself, whether it's Tang Xiao or me. Neither of us matters as much as your own interests, but you can't accept it. You can't stand the fact that I'm actually doing better now that I've left you. So you want to drag me back into the abyss. But Shin Chuan, I'm not alone anymore. My current husband is a brutal fighter, and he's got a gang of loyal henchmen at his beck and call. If you're looking for a way to end your life, feel free to come and try your luck. After I finished speaking, I glanced at Tang Xiao, who was standing nearby. Actually, I noticed she was following me right from the start, but I didn't make a fuss about it. I hope she can see Shin Chuan for who he really is and stop being taken advantage of without even realizing it. It was as if the whole thing had ended like a farce. Once Dad found out I had successfully secured the land, he kept his promise and handed over management of the company to me. I didn't tell them that Qin Yi and I had gotten married, because I didn't want anyone to disturb us. I just wanted us to live a quiet, peaceful life together. Every day, I go back and forth between work and home, and time just slips away. Before long, I heard that Tang Xiaoxiao was going abroad. Even the person who loved Qin the most in the world no longer wanted him. Before she left, she posted a lengthy message on social media, in which she spent the entire post condemning Qin for his betrayal and calling him cold-hearted and ruthless. I had some free time, so I gave that post a little boost. As a result, the Qin family, already mired in a debt crisis, was further affected by this incident, causing their stock price to plummet repeatedly. It is said they are on the verge of bankruptcy. Qin was swamped with work every day and was constantly looking for someone to help him. But at this point, who would be willing to help him? So he came to me again. It's been several months since we last saw each other. I'm currently busy developing that plot of land every day, and the thought of making a fortune in the future really keeps me motivated. But the Qin I see today is a completely different person from the one I saw a few months ago. His face was unhealthily gaunt. His eyes were dark and sunken. His beard was unkempt, and he exuded an air of utter desolation. I asked him, "Do you want me to help you?" To my surprise, he shook his head. He told me, Wei, I've been diagnosed with depression. I haven't slept properly in months. I finally understand the pain you went through before. This is my comeuppance." I forced a smile and said, "How can this be karma? This is your good fortune. Just think about it. In your past life, you died regretting that you hadn't saved Tang Xiaoxiao even though you achieved great success and fame. Even with me by your side, you're still unhappy. Well, now the heavens have given you a second chance. Even though you have nothing left now, you've made up for the regrets of your past life. That's enough. Life hasn't been too hard on you. People shouldn't be too greedy. When you gain something, you lose something else. You can't have it all." That was also the last time I saw Qin, because 3 months later, on the night the Qin family declared complete bankruptcy, Qin got drunk, suffered a depressive episode, and fell into the bathtub. By the time someone found him, he was already dead. It really is a case of what goes around comes around. When Hadana found out about this, he was massaging my back. My dad once told me that if a person lacks integrity, they're bound to fail in the long run. I rolled over and couldn't help but ask, "So how far do you think we can go?" Qin thought it over carefully and said, "Given who we are, 100 years wouldn't be too much, would it?" I couldn't agree more. That's only natural. It's not too much to ask for a good meal, is it? Qin stared at me intently. In the depths of his eyes, I was reflected as if I were the most exquisite rose in the world. They say loving someone is like tending to flowers. Qin cherished me dearly and couldn't bear to see me suffer the slightest injustice or hardship. Yet I only grew stronger and more capable as a result. Qin gave me more than I'd ever had in my 2 lifetimes. I wrapped my arms around his neck, kissed him on the lips, and said, "It's not too much.